Some people get stabbed in the back. Me, I got emotionally mugged in broad daylight. By my own mother. No balaclava, no weapon, just a ballpoint pen, a dodgy grin, and a casual, "It's for your brother's future. Oh, cheers, Mum. Would you like my soul as well, or are you full up?" I didn't scream, didn't weep, didn't even throw the nearest mug at the wall. I just stood there blinking like a damp lamppost while she sipped her tea and told me she'd sold the one thing Dad left me in his will. To help Darren, obviously. Darren, the nation's golden boy and our family's personal messiah. If Darren decided he wanted to start a llama circus in Liverpool, Mum would be at Barclays applying for a second mortgage. But hold on, let's rewind a bit. You need the full picture, how one woman's Olympic-level favoritism turned into the most spectacular maternal betrayal since the tale of Cinderella, if the fairy godmother flogged her glass slipper on eBay. My childhood, a masterclass in second-hand affection. Think Hunger Games, but the prize was attention, and I wasn't even in the running. We lived in a charming little semi-detached in Surrey, enough space for dreams to be crushed and dinner conversations to be dominated by Darren's latest existential epiphany. From the minute Darren popped out, he was the chosen one. Mum swore he had a special sparkle. I had eczema and a worrying habit of reading too much. When Darren painted the cat blue at age 6, it was abstract expressionism. When I spilt Ribena on the carpet, Christ alive, are you always this careless? Same house, same rules, very different PR spin. His birthdays were straight out of a middle-class fever dream. Bouncy castles, magicians, once even a petting zoo. For my 12th, a Smith voucher and a sandwich that may or may not have had mayonnaise I'm still suspicious of. And the card, oh, I must have left it in the glove box. Spoiler, we didn't own a car. School reports, comedy gold. Darren failed his GCSS, he's too creative for exams. I got straight A's, no one likes a clever clogs. I started to wonder if I'd been swapped at birth, perhaps for a broom with feelings. But no, I checked the family albums. Same unfortunate nose, same weary expression. Turns out I was just surplus. Let's talk about Darren, shall we? Darren had the confidence of a bloke who'd never been told no ever. He once declared he was going to become a DJ, despite owning zero equipment and mixing Adele with Swedish House Mafia like a crime against audio. Mum called it inspired. The following month, he fancied himself a filmmaker. He made a 5-minute masterpiece called Time Ninja, shot entirely on Mum's phone in the garden. It featured Darren in a dressing gown pretending to slow-motion punch time. Mum wept, said it was powerful. I submitted a short story to the school magazine. Won first place. Mum said, well, don't get cocky. Standard. Family dinners weren't dinners. They were a nightly broadcast of the Darren Chronicles, complete with monologue, dramatic pauses, and the occasional moral lesson. I told my manager I can't work weekends, my mental health matters. Mum, to write, stand your ground, love. Me, I stayed late to help my team. Mum, that's your choice. No one asked you to. Oh yes, support, as long as you weren't me. Fast forward a bit, Dad dies. Lovely man, quiet, always had a newspaper tucked under one arm like a budget Sherlock Holmes. He passed in his sleep, which, frankly, was probably the first piece he'd had in years. The will reading was surreal. Darren turned up wearing sunglasses indoors, said he was processing. I think he was just hiding a hangover. Anyway, Dad left the house to both of us. Equal shares. I nearly cried, not for the money, I wasn't that naive, but for once, I wasn't treated like a footnote. Cut to 6 months later. Mum's got a new car, Darren's babbling about launching a gourmet burger experience. And I'm looking at my bank account thinking, I didn't even buy anything. Why am I broke? Turns out, wait for it, Mum had sold my half of the inheritance to fund Darren's dream. When I confronted her, she sipped her tea like it was Downton Abbey and said, oh darling, I thought you wouldn't mind. You're clever, you'll be fine, Darren needs this more, right? Because logic. I didn't shout, didn't throw a cushion at her face, although I considered it. I just nodded, smiled, and mentally added her to my people to emotionally ruin without technically committing a crime list. Because that was the moment the rules changed. If you've ever wanted to know what it feels like to be the background character in your own life, allow me to introduce myself. I was the decorative plant in the family portrait. the emotional support child for when Darren was busy being too sensitive. Mum always said she loved us both equally. And then she'd turn around and give Darren a round of applause for breathing while reminding me that sarcasm wasn't attractive. Let's talk about the family dynamic, shall we? Picture a small, semi-detached war zone where Darren was the golden boy, the sun around which our entire household revolved. And me, I was Pluto, not a planet, just sort of there. Cold, distant, and occasionally forgotten by science and Mum. From the moment he was born, Darren could do no wrong. He cried too much, sensitive soul, bitter teacher, passionate, set the garden shed on fire, he's got a spark in him. I once knocked over a lamp and was told, and I quote, "You're turning into a menace." It was a table lamp, not Buckingham Palace. Every mistake Darren made was a learning moment. Every win of mine, barely registered. When he came home with a detention slip, it was the school just doesn't understand how creative he is. When I got top marks in English, Mum squinted at the certificate like it was written in Klingon and said, "Don't get cocky." It wasn't jealousy. Not really. It was more a slow, simmering confusion, like, is this some sort of performance art? Am I being pranked? But I played along. Worked hard, kept my head down, saved every penny I earned. Didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't even roll my eyes when Darren announced he was soul-searching through interpretive dance. You know what I got for it? A pat on the head and told I was low maintenance. Low maintenance, like a houseplant, or a particularly obedient Labrador. Meanwhile, Darren was getting life handed to him on a silver platter and still had the audacity to complain about the cutlery. Mum once said, "You've always been so independent, love." That's why I worry more about Darren. Oh yes, independence, the magical curse that ensures your sibling gets everything and you get character development. At family dinners, Darren would wax lyrical about his vision for a graffiti-based theatre production that challenges capitalism. Mum, in awe. Me, quietly eating my peas while Googling how to disown your family without paperwork. There were moments, of course, where the jealousy crept in. Not loud, not angry, just a quiet whisper of, what if I lit the shed on fire? Would I finally get a hug? But I shoved it down, because, despite everything, I loved my mum. And Darren, even if I sometimes wanted to strangle him with the laces of his artisanal, vegan-friendly trainers. I held out hope that one day she'd see me, really see me, as more than the kid who didn't need saving. Spoiler alert, that day never came. Dad died. No warning, no dramatic last words like look after each other, or don't let Mum sell the house to fund Darren's latest fad. Just ... gone, like the last biscuit in the tin. Vanished without so much as a crumb left behind. He was the quiet one, a man who could solve a crossword puzzle faster than anyone and had the patience of a saint. Well, a saint with a mild caffeine addiction and a slight tendency to snore loudly. The funeral was ... surprisingly civil. Darren turned up in sunglasses indoors because apparently mourning requires a certain level of cool. He said he was processing grief in his own way, which mostly looked like checking his phone and sending cryptic Instagram stories. Then came the reading of the will. You'd think this would be the moment of truth, the great reveal, the classic who gets what drama worthy of a daytime soap. But no, Dad had been oddly reasonable. The house was split equally between me and Darren. No hidden clauses, no favorite child shenanigans. Just a simple, fair split. I nearly cried, and not because I was suddenly overwhelmed with love for the family estate. More because, for once, the universe decided to throw me a bone. But here's where it gets good. Mum was named the executor, the trusted guardian of Dad's legacy, the woman who, up until that point, had been perfectly content to put all her chips on Darren's horse and forget I was even playing. So, naturally, I felt reassured, like handing the keys of a Ferrari to someone who's never driven past a roundabout. Fast forward a few months, and Mum suddenly seemed a bit ... flush. A new car. Darren chatting about opening a boutique artisanal toast cafe. Me, still counting the pennies, wondering if I could pay rent with good intentions. When I asked Mum what had happened to my share of the inheritance, she gave me this look, the one that says, "Bless your heart, you just don't get it." And then came the gem. "Oh, I thought you wouldn't mind. You're clever, you'll bounce back. Darren needs this more than you." Oh yes, the classic "you're clever, you'll be fine, okay. You're on your own, love." Better luck next life. And just like that, the fairy tale ended. The equal split turned into a masterclass in how to lose everything without even realizing it. So, one fine day, I stumbled upon a little nugget of news that made me question not just my family, but the entire concept of trust. Turns out, Mum had liquidated my half of the inheritance, which is a posh way of saying she'd sold it off quicker than you can say favoritism, all to bankroll Darren's latest brilliant business venture. Whether it was a restaurant serving avocado toast to middle managers or a tech startup that promised to revolutionize something nobody really understands, Darren was the next big thing, at least, according to Mum. When I confronted her, expecting maybe a sliver of guilt or a hint of remorse, what did I get? Oh, he just needs a push. You'll be fine, you always are. The classic British understatement, served cold with a side of don't make a fuss, love. Now, you might think this would send me into a furious rage, perhaps a dramatic cry in the rain, or at least a sarcastic tweet. But no, I just blinked, took a deep breath, and wondered if this was some surreal comedy sketch I'd accidentally wandered into. Because honestly, by this point, I'd learned the best way to survive was to treat life like a dodgy pub quiz, just smile politely, answer when asked, and hope no one notices you don't really know what's going on. So there I was, the forgotten sibling, watching my inheritance vanish faster than my hopes of a quiet family dinner. And Mum, she carried on as if nothing happened, pouring tea, chatting about the weather, and encouraging Darren to follow his dreams, while I tried to figure out how to make a meal out of sheer disbelief. So, after the great inheritance heist, I did what any sensible person would do. I politely withdrew from the circus. No dramatic phone calls, no scathing emails. No passive-aggressive Christmas cards, well, not yet. Just ... silence. Because if you shout in a room full of people who are already ignoring you, does it even make a sound? Spoiler. No, it just makes you look daft. I cut contact with Mum and Darren like a surgeon performing laser eye surgery, precise, deliberate, and with zero intention of ever looking back, while they were busy blowing my share on Darren's innovative ventures, which, by the way, turned out to be slightly less innovative and a lot more bankrupt than advertised. I started plotting, quietly, like a fox who's had enough of the farmyard nonsense and decides it's time for a little payback. First step, building my own empire. And not just any empire, one in the same industry as Darren's latest big thing, because what's better revenge than success served cold, with a side of irony? I immersed myself in legal loopholes, you know, those delightful cracks in the system that the clever and patient exploit, while the rest of us muddle along paying full price. I built a network, connecting with people who preferred their deals discreet and their ambitions sharp, all while keeping my cards close to my chest, my phone on silent, and my face a perfect mask of polite indifference. Meanwhile, Darren was still busy telling everyone how he was disrupting the market, which is a fancy way of saying he was causing chaos and confusion, completely unaware that his little brother was quietly becoming the person everyone actually wanted to talk to. By the time I finally re-emerged, it wasn't with a bang or a dramatic confrontation. No, it was with a calm smile, a confident stride, and a business that was not only thriving, but about to make Darren's dreams look like a dodgy episode of The Apprentice. And Mum, well, she still calls me occasionally, mostly to ask for tech support or advice on how to help Darren's business grow. Bless her heart. Oh, Darren's grand business venture, the shining beacon of Mum's eternal faith and my never-ending eye rolls, began to wobble. And wobble spectacularly, like a toddler on a trampoline. Mismanagement, oh, that's putting it mildly. Think less entrepreneurial genius and more bull in a china shop with a spreadsheet. Orders got mixed up, bills were forgotten, and the so-called luxury burger bistro quickly became known as the place to avoid. Meanwhile, my little venture, the one I quietly built from the ground up while keeping my head down, was doing just fine, thriving even. Clients began knocking on my door like it was the hottest ticket in town, though, of course, I politely left them waiting in the hall. Stakeholders started appearing like daisies in spring, attracted by the scent of something that actually worked. And then the calls began. Darren, desperate and flustered, started calling me for advice. Oh, the irony. Mum, on the other hand, suddenly remembered I existed, but only when she needed financial support for her beloved son's temporary setbacks. Bless her, always the champion of those who trip over their own dreams. But did I rescue them? Did I swoop in like some fairy godbrother with a checkbook and a smile? Nope. I gave them exactly what they deserved. A polite refusal and a reminder that karma, much like British weather, is best left to run its course. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud and messy. It's watching the chaos unfold from a safe distance with a cup of tea in hand and a wry grin on your face. So, after months of playing it cool and letting the quiet revenge simmer like a perfect cuppa, it was time to crank up the volume. No more hiding in the shadows, no more polite nods at family gatherings. It was time to show Mum and Darren that I wasn't just some background character in their tragicomedy. Cue the public reveal. I casually announced, with all the modesty of a bloke bragging about his new kettle, that I was now the proud owner of a rival company. Not just any rival, the kind that was slowly but surely eating Darren's innovative business for breakfast, lunch, and a cheeky dinner. And as if the news wasn't spicy enough, I dropped the legal bombshell. Turns out, Mum had gone ahead and used the family home as collateral for Darren's dodgy loan. Collateral she wasn't even entitled to offer because, oh yes, that house was half mine, which made the whole thing a bit of a legal no-no. Cue the panic. Mum suddenly transformed from the serene matriarch into a woman who'd just realized she'd sent a text meant for her best mate to the entire office. The house, the one Dad left to both of us, was now hanging by a legal thread, thanks to Mum's enthusiasm for supporting her favorite. And Darren. Well, Darren looked like someone who just found out his luxury burger bistro was actually a front for a tax investigation. Because losing the family home and the family fortune is quite the double whammy. Mum realized she'd lost not one son, but both. One had been swallowed whole by pride, never to return. The other, broken by pain, but finally standing tall enough to tell the truth. As for me, I was just enjoying the show, with a sly smile and a cheeky sense of satisfaction. Sometimes, justice doesn't have to be loud, it just has to be inevitable. Right, so after all the simmering resentment, quiet plotting, and enough passive aggression to fill a season of Downton Abbey, the inevitable showdown arrives. Mum and I face off like two gladiators, if gladiators argued over financial ruin and childhood neglect instead of swords. I look her dead in the eye and say, "You gambled with my future to bankroll his bloody dream. Congratulations, Mum, you've lost both your boys, one to pride, the other to pain. And no, there's no refund policy." Cue Mum's meltdown, the kind of breakdown only a woman who's just realized she's starred in a one-woman tragedy called How Not to Be a Mum can deliver. Tears, stammers, and a desperate attempt at a "but I did it all for love," which, frankly, sounded about as convincing as a politician's promise. No forgiveness, no reconciliation, just the raw, unfiltered realization that some mistakes are too colossal for band-aids or British stiff upper lips. As for me, I stand there with a cocktail of bitter satisfaction and resigned pity, because sometimes the best revenge isn't a punchline. It's watching the curtain fall on the circus you once called family. So, here I am, the dust has settled, the family circus has packed up, and I'm left standing with a cup of tea in one hand and a hefty dose of life lessons in the other. Stronger, definitely, wiser, probably. Colder than a rainy November morning in Manchester, you bet. I've stopped playing the game by their rules because honestly, their rulebook was written by someone who clearly never passed Year 7 English. Instead, I've written my own script, one where my past doesn't dictate my future. Where betrayal is just another plot twist, not the whole story. Sure, the scars are there, like badges of honor or reminders of exactly how dodgy family loyalty can be. But in this grand tragicomedy called life, I've learned that the deepest betrayal often comes from those who gave you life irony's favorite child. And yet, here's the kicker, it's not what happens to you that defines you, it's what you do after that gives you power. So I sip my tea, smirk a little, and say, sometimes the deepest betrayal comes from those who gave you life. But it's what you do after that gives you power. And with that, I walk on, a little bruised, a little bitter, but infinitely more in control than I was yesterday.